and welcome to a belated episode of Sugar, Silk, and hopefully Stretch at some point. A unique boxing podcast brought to you exclusively by Botches and Son. So we do apologise. We are aware that we have a small, dedicated cult following right now, and we know that a very small number of you have been waiting, thinking, "Where are they tonight?" A few people have messaged me on the Michael Olajide front. The excuse is honest enough, is it not, sir?
Oh yeah, you fell asleep waiting for the time. You fell asleep by accident. I understand, watching a football game.
Yeah, that's
and then you woke up. And you're like, you called me up. You're like, holy cow! I can't believe it. I was sitting there on the couch, and all of a sudden, it was an hour later. I fell asleep by accident. And you wholeheartedly apologized to me, and I accept your apology.
Yeah. So for the benefit of for anyone who's,
it doesn't matter who's right or wrong in this. It's like, just forget it. Let's just get on with the show. And
right? When he's right, he wants you to be truly subservient and kiss rings and all sorts. But when he's the one who fell asleep, by the way, Gary thought it was an hour later because the clocks go back or forward or whatever. I think it's backwards. They go backwards a week later in America, which always throws us off. Remember this last year when we were just Sugar and Silk? We had the same.
No, absolutely right, because I did set my alarm, and that's exactly why the alarm didn't go off, I guess.
Yeah. In any case, have we got any comments yet? So we haven't got any comments because we haven't said anything. Michael, the thing I wanted to talk about, certainly to kick the show off, and Gary will be joining us when he gets back from the supermarket in Los Angeles. Joe Cordina retained his IBF super featherweight title last night in Monte Carlo with a hard-fought. It wasn't controversial, but it was a questionable, debatable majority decision over Edward Vasquez from Fort Worth, Texas. And it was one of them things that, see, this is the problem I got, Michael. I don't have a problem with the fact that Cordina won the fight, okay? Perhaps he did win. I didn't score it round. But it was a tooth and nail kind of affair. It was very close. And you had Tony Bellew, that, obviously, who's a partisan commentator. He likes matchroom fighters. He knows Cordina because he's kind of his countryman, fellow Brit. And he had them even going into the 12th round. Now, I thought Vasquez won the 12th round. So, okay, one of the judges calls it a draw, 114 points apiece. The other two judges went 116, 112 for the champion, Cordina, which it's the out of alignment that raises the eyebrows and you have an issue with. And it's so typical.
Out of alignment with what you called or what you saw, or between the three judges?
Anybody knows it was that kind of 114 type of fight. It wasn't 116, 112 type of fight. Don't get me wrong, still.
But two of the judges called it 116, 114, right?
No, 116, 112.
112.
8 rounds to 4 instead of 6 rounds apiece.
But two of those judges called it the same, and one of them called it.
But there's no way that those two were right. The only guy who was watching the right fight was the one who had it called it. Honestly.
But how could you say that if two of them, I didn't see the fight in its entirety.
Come on, man. You were acquainted with the concept of bias and favouring the house fighter, favouring the A side, favouring the champion, all the rest of it. People have come to expect it. When a guy does that, he was 8-1 underdog, Edward Vasquez, right? He was very lowly regarded. I remember putting on Facebook, just mentioning the odds as is my wont the day before, and somebody said, there's a reason why he's 8-1. And I'm like, oh, really? Well, why is that? I think with Vasquez, he came with a lot of ambition, and he came with not just one plan, but two plans, and he was everything. He was very superbly conditioned, ready, kept the same pace up for 12 rounds, and he gave Cordina a lot of trouble. Maybe Cordina eked it out, but that's all he did, Silk. He did not win by 4-round margin.
So what's the difference? Maybe he eked it out, but what's the difference then? What if it would have been scored closer? What would that have meant to the fighter?
Oh, no, what it is, what we're saying is some people are default scoring bad verdicts. And do you know when you'll get Canelo against Bivol and they'll say, and he gets beat, but people will say, hang on, check this out. Canelo was won the first 4 rounds, even though he didn't win any of them. So, Bivol had to absolutely beat him out of sight down the stretch to get what was rightfully his. What we're saying is there's alarm bells with the way people are scoring fights. That's the issue. Not, well, it doesn't make a difference because they got the right winner. You know, because, and like I say, I wouldn't call it a robbery, but if Vasquez had won it, you'd have preferred Vasquez by a point than Cordina by 4 points, for sure, you would. Like I say, Tony Bellew, he's hardly impartial, had him level going into the last round. That's his card, not mine. And then Vasquez, for my eyes, aware that he'd said it all comes down to the last round, won the last round, you know. And Tony Bellew seemed to backtrack a little bit and say, oh, well, I think Cordina's got this. I think he basically thought, I'm going to say Cordina's got it anyway, even though... But by my scoring, he probably lost that because he probably lost the last round, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I see where you're coming from. I totally understand what you're saying about, you know, the disparity in scoring. It would be nice to have equal judges, but isn't it very much like, you know, if somebody commits a crime and everyone sees a certain individual, but then when they put him in the lineup, they can't identify. You know, everyone has a different, if you're looking at it from a different angle, you're getting a different experience, right?
British boxing fans are so cynical now. They will say, this guy will get robbed or this guy won't get a fair shake because they will protect the house fighter. That absolutely goes on.
So you think that's what it was? They protected the house fighter?
I think
but isn't that also what home field advantage is? And that's something that, like,
what, when you're fighting in Monte Carlo, when you're from Wales?
No, you said that they were protecting him. He was the house fighter. He was the promoter's fighter.
The promoter's fighter, yeah.
Yeah. So he's the promoter's fighter. So they're obviously going to give him a little bit of an advantage.
What, you're signing off on this and saying it's okay?
That's certainly what, let's take Floyd, for example. He fought all of his fights in Vegas. And I think there's a little, you know what I mean? Everybody knows.
That's not good.
Everyone knows what side their butter is breaded on, or what side their bread is buttered on.
That is obviously what we know, the cynics' view of things, and we're well aware of it. But are we not? Do you not feel that you should be standing against that to some degree, or looking for
I absolutely
reform?
do believe it is, and I'm just saying, like, this is just the way it is in boxing. So in order to, like, when they say you got to beat you got to destroy the champion in order to beat him, or whatever that saying was.
Well, that's one thing that Cordina came out with afterwards, which is the biggest crock of shit in boxing history.
Yeah.
But the trouble is,
you should just fairly squarely have to win. You shouldn't have to defeat or back up the champion or whatever it is. It's like, if you win, no matter how close.
The trouble is exactly that. And the trouble is, Michael, the trouble with boxing is the cliches, because it's nonsense. But the trouble in boxing is the nonsense gets legs. It starts walking and then it starts running. Because it's one of those things where these bogus concepts catch fire to the point where they become these unfortunate truths.
Yes. But the only way that's going to get better is by educating the public on boxing. And it's not just simply putting a fist on another guy's face. And, you know, I mean, Bellew said something interesting. He said, and he was absolutely right. He said, when judges look at a fight, or when they score a fight, the guy who goes to the head gets more punches than the guy who gets more points than the guy who goes to the body. And that's ridiculous. It shouldn't be that way.
But here's the thing, Silk, because one thing he said was, another thing he said was, yeah, they're very light punches. There's nothing on them, but you have to score them. But here's the thing. You don't have to score them, and they're not scoring them. They're not saying, when you watch a fight, if I tell you to judge a fight in the 10-point must system, you know how to do that. You've been there and all the rest of it. But if you watch this fight and you see 1-2 left hook land, regardless of the force, you're not scoring 1, 2, 3 punches. You're looking at the round. At the end of the round, you'll say to me, I give that 10-9 to Cordina because he landed more punches based on my kind of overview. I thought, or I landed harder punches, or, you know, whatever else you cite as your yardstick for the round. You're not counting those punches, are you? But what you probably know is they did that for a while in the amateurs. When Roy Jones got robbed against the Korean in Seoul Olympics, the International Olympic Committee said to the IAIBA, that was the boxing governing body at the time, if you guys don't come back with a more definitive measurable scoring system for the next Olympiad, then you're not in it, okay? So that's when they came up with these calculators and the clickers, yeah? And then the computer. Do you remember all that? Where you'd be suddenly... And then you had the guys who were saying, listen, if a guy lands a fast 4-punch combination like a flurry, they'll score maybe 1 punch of the flurry if you're lucky. So then people had all these issues with that. But what I'm saying is, it's all very well saying, oh, these are scoring punches, but they're not, because people just watch the round and then they make a decision at the end of the round. They don't count punches like they used to do in the amateurs.
You're saying they don't count them, but isn't that what they? So what do they do today in the amateurs? They still don't count the punch. There's still not a punch count because I remember
No, what do
watching
you mean still not? There used to be.
and
There
they'd have the
used to
little
be.
computer numbers on there, right? Little numbers with.
Yeah, that's what I just said. That's what I was just detailing. Since the Roy Jones thing, they changed it. But many years ago, they abandoned the computer, and now they're scoring 10-9s, 10-point must system like the pros.
Yeah, yeah. That I don't know. I mean, people want to make their jobs as easy as possible, right? That's kind of what they want to do. But I guess sometimes with computers, when you have people that haven't boxed before, and this is the problem with not recycling boxers back into the sport, and maybe you can't do that because I don't know, a lot of fighters have been kind of like abused, so it's hard for them to. I don't know if it's harder for us to stay focused for a long time. Whatever happens with
or even awake sometimes,
trauma and everything. Sorry.
Yeah. Or even awake sometimes,
or even
awake.
getting here on time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But hey, check it out. We all have our demons, and we do our best. You know what I mean? Some of those demons are natural, and some of them are whatever. They come to us along the journey. But if we recycle boxes back in, they can tell you what a scoring punch is and what isn't, and then they can be accountable for the decisions they make. And they know the effectiveness of the punch. They'll say, okay, that was a jab. I know it felt like that. That's a right hand. That's a left hook. I know it felt like that. I know it was more of an arm punch. So I know this is how effective it was. So I can score it that. You know what I mean? But they don't necessarily, or I don't know, maybe it's not even important to have the immediate decision. Maybe there should be a period of time where, I don't know, they always want the immediate decision. And I guess that's what the ref did back in the 60s and 70s over in England, I guess, when they just go over the guy's corner.
Literally raise the hand at the bell.
Yeah, and that's who I thought won. And that's maybe that would be an interesting way to do it again, because you have one guy and he's in there in the ring and he's following it better than anybody else in the boxing matches. Even he has even a better view of it than the cornerman. And he has
he does. But,
right? And so it's not wrong to go back even to that concept.
What about the old concept of one scoring referee and then two judges? So there was 2 and 1. You remember that?
But what's the purpose if the ringside judges are not effective, then what's the sense of having them at all? Why not just go back to one guy? He's either going to get stopped.
Here's the problem, I would say, because some referees are lousy judges, and because a lot of the guys are both, right? Certainly in England, a lot of the top officials are also referees. The top judges, they judge and they referee.
Yeah.
You get some guys who are notoriously bad. Ian John Lewis, who is a nice guy, and he is someone I know personally, so I'm not going to slag him off. He got downgraded by the board because consistently eyebrow-raising scorecards as a judge or a referee. Now, if you're at the mercy of one guy who's a bit whack, but he's a good referee, he's good at great controlling the fight, good rapport with the boxers, administers the rules perfectly, but it's just not much on scoring fights. That's the problem you've got. You haven't got two other heads to offset him. I'd rather have me and you at ringside than just Ian John Lewis refereeing and judging a fight on his own, for instance. Let me put it that way.
But the thing is, they don't even have to. They don't even have to present the scorecard. All they do, split decision, whatever. It doesn't even matter. They just raise the hand of the guy, and you know what I mean. And that's it. You don't have to say he won it 5 rounds to 7. That's not even a part of it. It's not even a focus. This guy won, split decision, majority decision. It doesn't matter. He won.
But you say that so, but the referees back in that system in England, when they only had one referee, the sole scoring official, they were still scoring rounds. They would hand their scorecards over to.
I guess they could go over to the corner and tick a who they thought won. You know what I mean? I mean, look at the referee is actually seeing it better than anybody. And if he's a fighter and he's experienced, he can tell you things about it that no one else is seeing.
You say that, but some fighters are lousy judges. They are the most knowledgeable collection of people on the internet or anything in today in modern time. In modern era. If you're sitting all boxers.
Yes, if you're sitting outside watching it, yes, I'm saying if the man gets up, gets in the ring, and watches and referees the fight. I don't see how he could be bad if he's a real boxer, unless
But
he's
did
a
you
real bad
understand as
boxer.
well that he's still scoring it and he's still scoring it round by round? You understand that's what they used to do. They would score it round by round, those referees.
And they'd still say 10-9, 10-8 or whatever.
Well, back in Britain, they used to score on quarters and halves of a point as well. They had a funny scoring system where there was quarters and halves involved, fractions as well as full points. It was quite complicated in that sense, to be honest with you. But see, because I reckon when Jim Jeffries would referee a fight back in the day, when he'd nominate two leading contenders to box for the title instead, or when he referee fights, I think they were just making up as they went along and deciding who they thought won, which I do not respect that way of doing things. That's not a good system just because he's James O. Jeffries. Fuck that. He's got to score it, and there's got to be some justification. I actually think gravitating away from that was a good thing, and there should be 3 ringside judges, personally.
How is that more effective than having one person standing for the?
Because the one person might be wrong, and at least you've got the chance of 3 good judges are better wherever they're sitting or standing are better than one. 3 good ones.
Okay, so but then you just have what we were saying. You have 2 judges that scored it out of whack, compared to one that scored it accurate. But generally, you would think, the majority, 2 of 3 are going to score it better than.
Usually that is the way it goes. Listen, usually you've got one renegade card which is out of whack with the other 2. That's the favorite, and it's usually a biased card that's the wild card, you might call it. But this time, honestly, it was the 2 judges who are more out of whack, and one of them got it right. Obviously, you're going to get that happening sometimes.
I wonder if the judges that scored it, both for the kid, right? The kid who won. Yeah. I wonder if they scored the same rounds for him.
Well, you can get the cards after any major fight. You will see the cards. I've already seen it. I've already seen the cards, available doing the rounds online.
Joe makes a real good statement here. Joe makes a real good statement. He says 1 guy can be bought, 3 are harder. That's true, but all you need to do is buy 1 guy, really. Yeah.
He said also Frankie Randall lost to Edwin Rosario by half a point. That was at the York Hall in Bethnal Green, right, Silk? Can you imagine the treat for East London boxing fans that Frankie Randall fought Edwin Rosario at the York Hall? I've been to the York Hall, working corners, watching fights or interviewing fighters over 100 times. It is the grassroots spiritual home of British boxing. But we used to get big fights there, Silk, in the back in the day. We had Buster Drayton versus James Kinchin there. Can you imagine that today? It wouldn't happen.
Oh, wow. I can't even imagine. Yeah, because you were telling me those are both, U.S., Puerto Rican and United States fighters. You could have them.
And also, Kinchin fought Drayton the day before Hagler Hearns at the York Hall, Bethnal Green. It was not televised, the show. Do you know who else boxed on the show, actually? Gary Stretch boxed on the same show. And I'm going to talk to him about it when he gets here, because he does say he's going to join us. But can you imagine Mickey Duff promoting a show off television featuring 2 world-rated American middleweights on a Sunday at the British, it's like the Blue Horizon, okay? It's like East London's equivalent, East End's equivalent of the Blue Horizon, and British boxing's equivalent of the Blue Horizon. And then the next day, Marvin and Tommy tried to decapitate each other in Las Vegas. But he just reminded me and made me feel nostalgic. I guess we're digressing a bit, but Frankie Randall boxed Edwin Rosario there, and the thing is, Edwin Rosario was doing his road work at the York Hall. Sorry, that was a fucking high-pitched thing that put me off. He was doing his road work in Hyde Park, and my dad got wind of this. So my dad went running in Hyde Park so he could bump into Edwin Rosario, and he got him to sign a piece of paper for me, I guess. I was, 15? And he said he wanted him to say all the best, Ben, but with him being Spanish-speaking, he didn't quite get the nuance, and he just wrote the best, Ben, Edwin Rosario. But, so that's a bit of nostalgia. But I actually do feel that my argument was, right, and by the way, at a low level, I've refereed and judged. Sometimes I referee white collar fights, you might call them unlicensed, whatever. Sometimes, yeah. Mm-hmm. And can we do anything about the thing that keeps happening?
No, I'm sorry. I have Tinkerbell is over here, and she's going rogue right now, and she keeps on hitting her dinkle thing, Tinkerbell.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I don't know what I can do about it. I have talked to it so many times before we went on this thing, but she just has to be recognized. She, in fact, her line herself, she said, "I will not be ignored," and she hits that little dink thing, and
We're still the coolest boxing podcast in the world, I believe. But we need to up our game on the professional front at some point on our road to world domination. There will come a time when we'll say, remember when we first started, before we took over the whole world, and you used to have that thing dinging, or you kept banging your knee on the table, Gary was late. There'll be funny, nostalgic times to reminisce over.
Very late. Gary was a no-show.
Yeah, well, he's still coming, he reckons. But anyway, so I've done a bit of refereeing, right? I've done my refereeing. I'm not qualified. My refereeing is based on the fact that I'm an ex-boxer and a coach and blah blah blah, and whatever else people call me, and I know how to look after two guys in a white collar fight. Okay, and so sometimes they ask me to judge, and sometimes they ask me just to referee it, and I vastly prefer just refereeing the fight. I don't like having to think about. I can do it, but I don't. I'd rather just concentrate on applying the rules and making sure everything's cool than I would be trying to judge the fight while I'm refereeing it as well, to be honest with you. I don't know how most referees feel. They'd be much more pertinent to ask them, the guys who worked at the top level, like an Arthur McKenzie or even a Bob Williams in England, or any of the other guys, but Carlos Padilla or whatever. But
can I ask you a question before we go any further? We'll come right back to this subject, but it just hit me, and I had to. What the hat that you're wearing? It's a Peaky Blinder, right? Is that what they call them?
Probably, yeah. I think that's what they called it ever since that. Did you see that show? That
I saw a bit of it. Yeah. But I was always wondering: that hat? Does that mean you belong to a certain gang or a certain type of people, or is there something specific that hat does? Because I don't think it keeps your head warm.
No, I don't know if it does. So, see, the Peaky Blinders thing, all I'm aware of is that related to a gang from Birmingham, in the Midlands in the 1920s, was it? The kind of early, kind of flat cap gangsters. Yeah. And it became very, very kind of hip and well known and iconic because of the really popular period drama called Peaky Blinders. Yeah. I've never watched it. It's one of the things that Sopranos, that everybody's watched. It's one of the things I haven't watched still. But that's the only thing that I know.
I guess it's like an identity, right? It's part of an identity of those people.
I suppose it is for that people like that. Yeah, I can't say it is that way for me, but this has been a stylized thing for.
So it's not as effective or as functional as let's say a sombrero and another.
Yeah. I know that certainly you've seen them reference in boxing over the years. Remember the guys like Harry Greb era and used to wear them, right? They used to wear them too.
Yeah. So it's a form of identification. It's not really functional. It's a form of ID. So UID too, it's like a heritage thing, I guess.
I suppose so. I must have my own decision to wear it sometimes on the show is not nearly so considered or deep as that.
No, but I think you've always worn it since you've been on the show.
I don't. Not every show. If you watch some shows, some of those I don't.
No, I watched it. I think like 99.9% you've worn the Peaky.
Quite honestly, not as much as that. We could go through it and you'd find there'd be different. Some shows, some shows I don't. But it really mix it up,
Yeah, but it's a part of you. I like it, and it matches your decor, and it definitely matches your accent. So
yeah. You don't normally see me with that off the show. It's like more of a show thing than anything else. In any case, we were talking about scoring.
Sorry, but before you go any further, I think Joe said something there. What did Joe say?
He said something, but I made the decision not to particularly go. You won't get it. If I can highlight the comment, you won't get it. I got it. So sometimes you need to trust me that I'm like a professional and I can see certain things. I'll be like, let's not flash that one up. And I'm kind of like Gary said, I'm the anchor. Sometimes.
But like you're playing Lord of the Land, giving us what we can talk about and what we can't.
I'm not, and you're never going to fit into anybody else's box like that. But sometimes trust me with the flow, because sometimes you're like, well, wait a second. What I want to do is somebody mentioned that the guy had a tattoo on his knee back in like 1917. Can we go back to that again? And I'm like, well, I was kind of trying to.
But it is. I'm sure it's relevant. There's a point that could be made from it.
Yeah. I still remember you asking Danny Romero. Danny Romero came to the most greatest crystallizing conclusion about what life is all about, what boxing is all about, the struggle, oneself. And it was just the most perfect denouement. You could have dropped the mic. You could have maybe had a cello playing, a quartet. And you were like, oh, one thing I noticed, but you went the distance in your fifth professional fight. Why was that? And I was like, I can't believe he's just gone all the way back there. So, but, that was a long time ago. That's when you were still green. You were still
Yeah. Now I'm black. So
yeah, exactly, and that's a whole different level of uncancelableness.
I was green, but now I'm black.
Listen, getting back to scoring, because obviously I was hoping Gary will turn up, and here he is right now.
Well,
This is
hey,
him. Let's add him to the stage. All right.
Sorry, I'm late. I got the hours mixed up. Ben sent me everything, but I misread.
You know, Ben's always doing that. He's always throwing you off. He did the same thing.
Ben is the pro.
He did the
So
same
he said what I
thing
said
today. And
You always find a way to blame Ben, but I'm not blaming Ben this time. It was my fault. I believe you got it wrong too.
No, yeah.
He fell asleep.
He set the
Fell
clock
asleep,
back.
huh?
He set the clock back an hour so I could, you know what I mean?
Yeah. In any case, all right. Let's pick up the fight. We've discussed it a little bit, Gary, but we would
have a cigarette now and again. Give him a chance.
We had more of a discussion about scoring and the imperfections of boxing scoring. But last night, well, we were talking in general, but off the back of the Cordina Vasquez fight last night, which it wasn't a robbery.
The score and appalling.
He thought it was a robbery.
Very close.
But so why do you think like that?
He's about to tell you. He's going to tell you.
Well, I saw the fight. Very competitive. Great fight. The best man won. Very tight margin, but to have a scorecard like that is offensive again. Like that's where the issue comes in.
What does it do? How does it hurt?
Well, it hurts
because it shows what they Well, let Gary say.
What it shows is home side fighter, promoters fighter. I mean, this is the issue. It's like
but it's always been that way, right? Come on.
You're going to have the same conversation with me that you had with him, but some with him that you had with me, like half an hour ago.
It's always been that way. This is the issue. The boxing game's a business. So, like every other business, you're a builder, you have a contractor, you use the same contractor every time you build a house. So they want to keep that relationship strong. So the contractor always favors his employee, and so the judges get hired by these promoters on a regular basis, so they keep their position strong, and it's a fucking joke. And who loses? The fighters and the fans.
But he would have. The point is, he would have lost anyway. Just the amount by which he lost was too much.
Well, no, Michael, there's a very strong argument that he won. Gary is saying he thinks Cordina nicked it, but if anybody said scoring the fight for Vasquez was more sensible by a point than scoring it for Cordina by 4 rounds, that was a more sensible, viable card. The guy might have won. You know that. He might have won.
The thing is this: they should judge as we do per round, and then they add up the rounds at the end. The referee takes the cards. But it seems to me that it's just, we know innately that it leans against the promoter's side every time, and it's wrong. And how do you fix that? I think there should be some kind of body where referees can't work for the same promoter all the time. I think I think that the commission should choose the referees, not the promoter.
Yeah,
the judges.
Say that part again. Sorry.
I think that the boxing commission should allocate the judges, the referees per fight. Has nothing to do with the promoter. Yeah. Whereas right now, the promoter has his little team. They bring in the judges. They have the refs, and refs can win and lose fights for fighters. You know, if you're doing good stuff and they keep stopping you doing what you do best, or take a point from you if it's close. They can take a point off you for anything. There's 2 rounds, and you lose fight. So I think the only way you can stop it is that the
I think the commission do choose the judges, Gary, but the promoter pays them. That's the problem.
Yes, and again, then we get into an issue with the promoter and the commission. So maybe we have a completely new body that is untouchable. That is that does that, because right now, and then there's no argument.
Yeah, well,
it's all about money. The game is money. We know it.
Yeah, but boxing isn't so complex that it could do that, right? It doesn't have like the structure and the money and the organization of, let's say, the MSL, the soccer league or baseball league or football leagues over here.
Billionaires, these fucking promoters, and if they took a 1% fee off all fights to create a body that could just be an independent body that demands for judging system, for refereeing. these fighters give their lives. And it's nothing to some silly judge who goes home and has dinner with his wife, goes to bed. But this kid's trained for 20 years. He was up at 5 every morning for 10, 12 weeks. Some of them borrowed money to get into camp. Their whole life since they're 8, they want to be world champion. They get the shot, they win it, and some fucker takes it away from them over money. It's disgusting. It affects lives. It destroys people. This, again, can affect mental health later. You know, when you train your whole life to become a world champion and someone robs you, you're an angry person, right?
Yeah.
You retire, you got your shot, you're unresolved.
Yeah.
You end up drinking, you do this, you do that.
It
affects lives in many different ways. That then trickles down to affects his family, his children. Lives are affected by bad decisions because this is our life. You got to take.
I can certainly get behind that, Ben. You see that?
It feels to me that we get more bad decisions in this era than we used to get. We've always had them, Gary, Michael. But I do feel in the last 10 years, it's become like a default thing. I don't know what your perspective or feelings about that is.
Imagine Ben, you train to be a pilot your whole life, right? And you start to fly and you start having a living, and someone can control your career. You do nothing wrong. You're just a great pilot, but someone could say, "Yeah, you flew badly that night. You're fired." Now you've got no life because all we do as fighters, our whole life is to get our pilot's license to fight. We turn pro. We drop out of school. We don't go to college because we turn professional. We put all our eggs in one basket. The big night of our life, because there's no money till you win a world title. The big night that you're 20 years of your life you've worked for, you win it. They rob you. There's no big payday next. Back down the ladder.
Yeah.
A mountain to climb. How fucking disgusting is that? Over money. And it happens every day. We see it every day. And lives are destroyed. And these people are getting the little 10, 20 grand backhanders to judge it.
Do you honestly believe, Gary, they're getting actual backhanders rather than the fact that they just feel the automatic bias towards the hand that's feeding them?
Well, there's an automatic bias, but I think, look, when you're talking $1 billion fight, let's say Fury, I'm not saying Fury and Ngannou, but I think Fury won the fight. But imagine if he didn't, and then the Usyk fights off in Saudi or whatever, then you're talking $1 billion is at line. They're going to guarantee that they get that decision, right?
Well, some people certainly think so. I'll give you an example, both of you. When that lady, what was her name? Was it Adelaide Bird or was it CJ Ross? Her name was. She scored Mayweather Canelo a draw. Now, and everybody thought that has to be corruption, that has to be bent, because there's no one on earth, anybody, no matter how unacquainted they were with the basic tenets of the sweet science, could honestly think that Mayweather drew with Canelo.
That judge should have gone and got Stevie Wonder a driving license.
She's never worked anything high profile since. But the thing is, do you think that was obviously, both of you, in order, you can answer it. Do you think, was that a blatant case of payola? No question. Yeah.
It was a boxing lesson. It was for young boxers.
I know what the fight was. I'm asking you, what was the scorecard? Was it corrupt as fuck or what?
What I'm saying is it's all relevant to what I'm saying. That was a masterclass on boxing. A small guy, and people talk about it. Canelo had 40 plus fights. He was a veteran. He was not young.
Too green, they said. Yeah,
he was green after 40 fights and how many world titles? Right? And by the way, Mayweather in his 40s, way past his best. Took him.
He was 39. 39.
Okay, 39. Takes him to fucking school.
Yeah.
For someone to be so uneducated about the game to score a different way or draw is like she should be banned for life.
An interesting aside. I watched that fight with Dustin Hoffman. It was great.
Did you? Yeah. So,
wow, man, that was so cool.
But what I'm asking both of you is that a blatant case of payola? Was she bribed? Is it the only?
Well, we can't say that legally, but my opinion is it was definitely not an honest choice. If she knows anything about boxing, she knows she was 100% wrong. So
And we'll hope she does know.
I think she had a motive, and what that may be, I'm not a lawyer, but
it certainly could just be ineptitude as well. That's the thing. Yeah, it's so hard to pick out what it could be. It really
how do you get decided like that?
There are so many people that don't really know how to score a fight. And if you've never been hit before, how do you score it for more than what it is or for less than what it is?
Well, it's a 12-round system, so she could get a round wrong. Maybe she was, she had a sneeze and missed a few shots, but she can't get 12 rounds wrong. When she's
Michael, are you saying non-boxers shouldn't judge? Are you saying non-boxers should never judge fights?
I'm saying, like, well, look, when somebody is getting hit, you see it, and whether you've boxed or not, you say, okay, that's a scoring shot or not. But to see what effective aggressiveness is, and to see what, you know what I mean, the difference between, a good jab and a good left hook, and a good body shot and a bad body, and a not as effective body shot, or a punch that's thrown and scored with like a loose wrist, and a punch that's
when we get into fighters judging, Michael, Ben, we get into another issue.
That's right. There's always something.
I'll tell you for why.
Yeah.
Imagine you are you're the banger, you're the big puncher. All your fights, you're aggressive, you bang.
Yeah.
And then so you're very pro the guy who presses. So
absolutely.
And you think you win fights because you're trying to make the fight, and Mayweather's just negating you and stealing it from you, and you're frustrated. Like Duran Leonard, right? He just said, fuck this. It's not a fight, but it is a fight. That's a boxing lesson you were getting. Right, but he's going to be biased to the guys who push forward. So his style, because so I just think that it should be fighters. I think, like, I don't know the employment method, but I think they should be some kind of not a school, but they have to qualify a certain whatever, not just. Basic,
but always, Gary, always having the actual physical experience helps. I mean, when you look when you look at officials, like let's say NFL football, when you look at officials and when you look at coaches, and they've played the game, they've understood and got knowledge of the game. I mean, they've played the game since they were like knee high, and then they played it through high school and through college, maybe semi-pro, maybe pro. But you need that in order to be able to understand what a player or what an athlete is going through.
I think it's like if you go on the the TV show Shark Tank.
Yes.
And the Dragon's Den, right?
No, I don't know that part.
Okay, when people go in to pitch a project, if the Dragons know the person, they can't take part in because they have an affiliation.
Mm-hmm.
So they're biased in some way. So they say, I know the guy, he's a friend of mine, so I have to sit out. I think there should be a system where if you're affiliated with a fighter, a promoter, whatever, then you can't judge that fight because there's a million judges. They're not all affiliated with, and you should have a neutral set of judges, protected, that no one's affiliated with anyone.
Yeah, I do believe in that. Absolutely no affiliation. I
remember when Jersey Joe Walcott lost to Joe Louis the first time, and everybody thinks he won. He outboxed Louis that night, and he put him over twice. He scored 2 knockdowns. Yeah. 1948. Okay, the referee was Ruby Goldstein, who was a friend of Louis. Now, Ruby Goldstein voted for Walcott, and he was the only one because the other 2 judges went for Louis, the champion, and all that kind of stuff was cited, which Joe mentioned earlier. People said you've got to take it away from the champion and blah, blah, blah. They didn't like it because Walcott was going backwards. But when it was put to Louis that it was his friend, his personal friend, Ruby Goldstein, the referee, who actually voted against him, he said, I know Ruby, and he calls him like he sees him. And I think, we do have examples where that integrity overrides any personal relationship. And one would hope that is what we're dealing with.
What about Mayweather? I mean, but again, I do believe there's money in amateur boxing. I think there's a lot of business takes place in the amateurs. I think a lot of the trainers and the coaches in the amateurs are getting paid to send the boys certain places. But when Mayweather lost the Olympic, the referee even raised his hand by mistake, but because he thought there's no way to give it to the other guy. They give it to, I think he was Bulgarian, right?
Yeah.
Is that just complete incompetence, or is the?
I believe it's got to be incompetence.
Well, you remember Michael Conlan when he lost to that Nikita, whatever his name was, the Russian, in the what would have been the Olympics? I'm guessing it would have been the. I guess the 2000. No, was it 2021 or was it before that? Either
Same
way,
with Roy Jones, if you remember.
Yeah, but Roy Jones, I mean that was probably the worst, certainly the worst high profile robbery I've ever seen in amateur boxing. But Michael Conlan lost a fight that he looked like he beat the guy out of sight. And do you remember that kind of profane tirade he went on when he said it's fucking corrupt from the core to the top? I don't give a fuck if I'm on live television. He said, he just said it is corrupt from the core to the top. Amateur boxing,
I believe that the whole game is again, it all again boils down to money. And people, say there's no money in amateur, but of course there's money in amateur, because if you're a great amateur, you turn pro for a lot of money, and that is a trickle-down system to make sure that we get the best amateurs. So the amateur guys make sure.
Money is the common thread in everything, right? So that's always going to be the culprit. It's always going to be some ingredient.
But fellas, you don't even need money. Everybody knows in the amateurs. When you box on someone else's show, we boxed twice. I boxed him on my show and I won. I boxed him on his show and he won. You remember that, right, Gary?
Yes, but you know what I'd love to see? You can't. I mean, I don't think it's even possible, but maybe it is. Imagine having an app and you have Fury versus Ngannou. The end of the fight.
Yeah, I was going to make that joke because he fell asleep. Go on, keep going.
10 million people watch the fight, right? And at the end, we get the scorecards, and then at the end, we get the audience scorecards, and we just look who won the fight. It would be interesting.
Would you be in favour of that? Because you know what? I mean, I'm saying this for a bit of fun, but I went to a white collar show once where I was training a bunch of guys, city boys, for a white collar show in the city in London. And what they did on this particular night was they had like everybody at the audience at the tables, the people who were attending, they had like a red boxing glove card and a blue boxing glove card, and they held up the one they thought of won at the end. And obviously there was people might be rooting for the guy that they come to see. It wasn't to be taken too seriously, but you look for a preponderance of red or blue. Could that ever work in any?
That would be fun. I think it could be amazing. I mean, when you walk through the ticket stall, they give you a blue and red.
And if one guy who sells the more tickets, he's going to have more fans, and he's going to be.
Imagine that, Michael. That would be terrible if it worked like that, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be the worst.
Imagine if we had it where it was the guy who brought in the more money or had the better following and actually won the fight.
Yeah.
But at least we have only a few elite people making those decisions instead of any fucking Tom, Dick, or Harry who's paid to watch
an interesting point on the Ngannou and Tyson Fury fight. I don't know if you've said this already, but in the States, it only did 11,000 buys.
No, 67,000.
67,000?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes.
On ESPN. On ESPN.
It was 67,000 pay-per-views in the States. Honestly, I've seen the figure.
Oh, so it must have been ESPN and somebody else, because ESPN.
Ngannou Tyson.
Yeah. It bombed in the States, the pay-per-view, basically. Eyebrow raisingly low. McGregor Mayweather did 4.3 million. This did 67,000.
Yeah, I mean, the other guy, the brother, Paul, he does more buys than that.
Yeah. And why did you want to mention that?
You just brought up Ngannou, and I just remember going past that fact, and I just thought it was.
I didn't say nothing about Ngannou.
Yeah, you
brought him up, but it's fine. It's cool. We can talk about it. But I just
you did. Well, what were you just talking about before? You were talking about Fury, and you.
No, we weren't. We were talking about giving the people red or blue cards and making the decision in the crowd.
Yeah, but before that,
you said that reminds me, Ngannou.
No, but before that,
we were talking about.
No, did Gary mention Ngannou?
I don't think so.
I think he did.
But either way, the thing is that the pay-per-view didn't do well, and this is the thing, right? When the Saudis underwrite an event like that and pay mega bucks to everybody, it kind of doesn't matter. So and they paid all those legends to be there to make it look like an event. They're just throwing money down the drain in a way. So
you know how much
organically it wasn't as big as the Saudis made it. Do you understand?
Yes, absolutely. And so what I'm saying now is that puts the Fury and the next Fury fight in jeopardy. Like now they moved it off for whatever reason they're going to say they moved it off for, but who knows if it's even going to happen again coming up in a couple of months.
It's supposed to happen, like you say, before the end of Riyadh season. They say February. They say late February.
Yeah, that's what they say. But now, you know what I mean? They look at the numbers with Tyson Fury, and they're who knows what the who knows, the money may not be worth as much, and so maybe also the Saudis that are going to do the fight, maybe they don't want to put out that much anymore. Looking at the numbers that he got, because obviously USA is, I believe it's the kind of like fight capital
Let
of
me
the
tell you,
world.
the Saudis, the money that they're spending is like
most of the money comes from the United States, right?
No, the Saudi money is just insane money. So
does
just,
it come from the US with the oil? Yeah.
They simply want to get the attention. They don't care if they win a fight, make money or not. The companies are
they're
big.
setting up for something else, and that's what they're paying their money for.
They're going to make the money in tourism and all of that stuff. No, they don't care about the fights. It's simply a PR stunt for them. They're paying for the tourism. They're not paying for the fight to make money.
And they want to take over boxing to an extent, or they want to be a big player in boxing. And I think they're prepared to spend so much money in order to make that happen.
They're using the boxing game to promote the country. That's all. And there'll be another, and then they'll do UFC too, and they'll do other things, and they'll probably end up putting shooting movies there. I mean, they're just getting attention for the country to put the country on the map and to open the world to this country, get people's eyes on the country, to get a good, make it a tourist spot, and to give the country a profile, and so they'll pay whatever to get there.
Okay.
Serge Ali has just mentioned, because I was going to ask you what the worst decision, if you had to say the worst decision you've ever seen, and Serge has just mentioned mine when Pernell Whitaker lost the first fight to Jose Luis Ramirez. That was over Paris. That is the worst decision I've seen, amateur or pro, personally.
That was, let me think. That was pretty bad. Yeah, that was terrible.
There was no argument. There was literally no argument for Ramirez. Whatever metric you're going by, you want to talk about ring generalship, effective aggressiveness, or whatever you're talking about, or color of the shorts.
Yeah,
there was literally no angle for saying Ramirez had won. He had his head boxed off, and and I remember that was when Lou Duva called Jose Salam. He called him a gosh darn thief. Because he said that is you that's done that. You are to blame for this situation. But that's the worst one I've ever seen. Have you? If I asked you the worst decision you've ever seen, what would you say, Gary? Straight off the top of your head.
I don't have one.
What are you saying? The same one as me, Michael, or you got another one?
Yeah, absolutely. That was. I remember watching that plain as day. I could not believe that was even a. that was a decision. That was
Pete was so shocked. Pete fell on the deck with his head in his hands, like you've just heard that. Literally, your entire family's been wiped out by a virulent disease or something.
And Sal also said, Saj also said that he thought Chavez was a robbery, and that was true.
Yeah, he beat
Chavez. It was absolutely a robbery. There was no
I remember this. I remember Whittaker beating Chavez. I also remember the Meldrick Taylor was the 4 seconds from victory, whatever.
2 seconds.
But the argument is you could get killed with a shot.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I don't have a problem with that stoppage. I think we said before, Gary. I think we agreed we didn't have a problem with the stoppage. Actually, all three of us.
Yeah, when it gets that because the ref can't be conscious of the time.
It was George Benton who said he don't walk around with a clock on his ass. He said, that he's just a referee.
Yeah.
I'm sure some bad ones. And I honestly don't believe that it's incompetence. I think most of the time it's business. And
what I'm interested in ascertaining, Gary, because you started when you turned up on the show, you started making the very, very, very valid, true point that it's a question of supply and demand, and you keep like it in every business. You forge good relationships with certain suppliers and all the rest of it, and you keep the gravy train rolling. That's a natural thing to do. And when it's only, if you're just talking about making log cabins, that's absolutely fine. When it's other people's, when it's supposed to be a sport and albeit a business, and you talk about people's dreams, it's slightly different. But do you actually believe that there is actual blatant bribes as well go down? Because every judge
I believe, yes, I believe in every business in the world. Nothing's pure. I think that generally it can be I think there's a lot of supply and demand. That's just a given. And I think there's a small percentage of absolute poison in the sport, like there is in every sport. 100%.
Do you think so too, Michael?
Boxing in its nature is a, you know, is since the beginning of time. It's had the mob. It's had
listen, people don't care. Yeah,
fight game has interesting characters, you know.
Yeah, and people don't care how they win as long as they win. People like losing is just such a terrible, ugly, thought of as socially, like, just not a good, even though you learn more when you lose than if you win, right? When you win, you pretty much stay in the same spot as you were. When you lose, you have the opportunity, the option to get better and better yourself and come back and win. And that has a whole different value to it. But people don't want to take that experience because it's an effort. And it's painful.
But I think to all of us and any purist, if you train your heart out and we fight and you get beat fair and square, I can live with that.
Yeah, you can. But people who don't really compete cannot live with that. People who don't compete can't live with that.
No, but what I'm saying is, as the fighter, I don't care about the promoter, the trainer, or as the fighter. When you win that fight and it took you 20 years to get there and you get robbed, it's soul destroying. If you train for that fight and you fairly get beat, you can live with it. It's okay.
Yeah.
You know, it's okay. You can sleep at night. You know you're not the best. But imagine going to sleep at night, you never got the money, you never got the belt, and you know you're the best fighter in the world. And that is soul destroying. So that is where it affects lives. You know, if you lost to me I'm not ashamed to lose. When I lost to Eubanks, my father had never told me he loved me in his life.
Yeah.
And it's a funny thing. And I came back to the changing room. I had a towel on my head and I was so angry that I lost. I said to everyone, get the fuck out, everyone. Even my brother, everyone's got to go. And my father was there and I said, you got to leave, Dad. And he said, what? I said, please leave. And he walked out of the changing room, right? And my father had a wispy chest, little like fluid. And I remember growing up as a kid, I used to lie on his chest sometimes, and it was like the ocean, this wispy chest. They used to make me peaceful. Anyway, I said, everyone's got to get out. And I closed the door, and I was sat against the door, and I must have been there for an hour or so. And it was getting fucking dark, and I could hear people sweeping up in the hallways, you know? And someone turned the lights out and it's pitch black in the changing room. And I'm sat there and in the darkness, I heard this. And I said, Dad? And he went, yes, son. And I opened the door and he was sat the other side of the door behind me. Two of us in the door. And he come in and he sat next to me on a bench. And he said, you know, kid, when you were born, you was born in the house. I said, okay. And he said, I was out buying your mother a carry cot, and I got back and there was an ambulance, and I said, what the fuck? She said, he's upstairs. And he said, you was a week early. He said, I ran up the fucking steps and they put you in a chest of drawers. And this is a plumber, my dad, motorcycle racer. Yeah. He said, he put you in a chest of drawers. He said, I had dirty, oily hands. He said, I wiped my hands and I picked this little baby up. He said, my God. He said, you know, Gary, I knew you was always going to be somebody. And this little thing that he said, and I looked at him and he said, let's go home. I said, okay. And we walked out of that venue, and that moment I had with my father, I'm happier that it's the first time he was really saying, I love you. You're always special to me. Yeah, you won or lost. It was worth the loss.
Yeah.
So I got beat fair and square. So that kind of a loss is magical to me. But when you get beat, when you give your life and you get fucked, that is soul destroying. It affects lives. And I think people who
you can never let go of that kind of life.
Judges make a bad decision. What it should be done, you should go to a board. They should watch the fight with 20 of the best experts. If the judge is 100% wrong, blatantly, I'm not talking around, I'm talking if it's a complete robbery, there should be repercussions.
Well, I was talking before you got here, Gary, the Josh Taylor-Jack Catterall fight, which the world and his brother felt that Catterall had won. And that was actually 4 world titles, you know, all 4 belts were actually on the line that night, and Catterall could have been the undisputed light welterweight champion of the world. But he got shafted. Everybody seemed to believe he did. Ian John Lewis, a referee you may be aware of, he was a fighter back in more around about slightly after your era, only about a few years. And he got downgraded by the board for his scorecard. Not just that, there were other incidents where they cited what they regarded was a lack of complete competence with his scorecards over the last few years. But the straw that broke the camel's back was the Josh Taylor, Jack Catterall decision, and he got downgraded. But in an interesting twist, fellas, he told him to shove it, I guess, because they downgraded him. He was an A-star, and they made him just an A or a B, whatever. And then he was like, well, fuck you then. And he joined this renegade organisation called BIBA, the British-Irish Boxing Association. And then he's recently sued the board because he thinks it was racial, because he's black. That was why they downgraded him, because he's black. Which, do you know what I mean? And funny enough, Spencer Fearon said, no, my friend. He said, I'm the kind of guy who looks for racism hard. He said, it's nothing to do with racism. It's because of your incompetence.
Yeah, incompetence is
But it isn't. But in any case, Gary, the board, there are precedents where the board recently took action against a referee, and as is the fashion these days, he's come back at them with a discriminatory kind of a suit, saying that there was racial prejudice at the heart of their decision. Which,
based on the profession that we're in, the fight game, it's full of colourful characters, as you know, and some very dark ones, and there's always a little bit of the boys in the fight game. I'm surprised that there hasn't been some serious ramifications of like, if imagine being a fighter and a ref and a judge really fucks you, like, and destroys your life. I'm surprised I haven't read that some judge ends up under
the down hands,
and with cement shoes in the lake. You know what I mean? I haven't heard of that, but you would think it should have.
Did you ever hear about the Kid Gavilan, Billy Graham fight back in the? It was the 50s, right? Okay, and it was said to be one of the worst robberies of that era when Kid Gavilan got the decision against the up-and-comer Billy Graham, right? And supposedly, years later, because Graham's manager Frankie Carbo asked for, Frankie Carbo was Mr. Gray. Yeah. He was the man who controlled boxing and had a stranglehold in that era. Okay,
and he was also a mafioso.
He absolutely he was. Yes. And he said he asked for a meeting with Billy Graham's manager, whose name escapes me right now. I think his name was Artie Schwartz. I think his name was, but either way. He said to him, listen, I want to meet him with you. They met at some New York hotel, Gramercy kind of neighborhood, and they said, 20%, give me 20%, and your kid's got the title, okay? Give me 20% of Graham, and your kid's got the title. And he said, no, we ain't going to do that, fuck you kind of thing. And he said, well, your fighter's got the last say. Go talk to him. He said, go talk to Graham, then come back to me and tell me that you ain't going to give me 20%. And then he comes back, and Graham was loyal to his manager, and he said, no, bollocks to him, or he wouldn't have said bollocks because Americans don't use that word, but you know what I mean? So he goes back to Frankie Carbo, the manager, and says, Graham says no as well, like I knew he would. And he said, well, okay. He says, your kid's got a lot to learn. Doesn't he know he's not going to win? He's got a lot to learn, that kid. And then Gavilan got what was a controversial decision, which was very unpopular, certainly in the house that night. I believe it was at the Garden, okay? And years later on his deathbed, one of the judges called Graham's manager to his deathbed and said he had to unburden himself. He says, I had to do it. He said, I'm really sorry, Artie. He said, I feel so bad for what I did to you and Billy Graham. And then the manager at the time was magnanimous. The man's dying. He said, it's okay. Don't you worry about it. But that's a little anecdote for bedtime almost at this point. We're so damn late with this show tonight.
See how he rubs it in, Harry? See how he rubs it in? See how he rubs it in?
He's been sat waiting a long time.
We're going to have to put you in therapy.
Because of what for this time?
Well, because you can't let things like this go. I mean, accidents happen. It's not Gary's fault that he's late.
No, I was actually trying to do a because I
was in the supermarket when he called me.
Yeah, he was. He was by the avocados.
I was by the avocados. Yeah.
Avocados are a fruit, right?
They are a fruit. Yeah. Good call. Very, very good.
It's always important to educate. You know.
See,
sometimes we assume because they're green that they're vegetables. Where exactly?
You would. It's a bit like tomatoes.
Well, I was there because yesterday was my birthday, which was a Saturday.
Yeah.
I'm in LA, And so Sunday, which is today, of course, in LA, same as you, you're behind you. But I invited a few of my mates over for dinner, but I'm going to cook. So I'm doing a lamb shank. So I just had to buy 10 lamb shank.
Wow. Okay.
And it's like a 5-hour cook. And so I was at the supermarket getting all my produce. And Ben called me. I looked at the messages. I'm thinking, what the fuck's going on with Ben again? He's got his knickers in a twist. And then, of course, I looked at the messages and I said, fuck, I'm wrong again. Ben did tell me, even called me the hours and days. He was completely diligent in everything. But I hadn't looked. I glanced past the message, so I missed it.
Hey.
So I called him from the avocado section. And I said, Ben, can you cover me? And he pushed back. But it didn't. We only had 6 followers anyway, so
yeah. Did you see how much?
There's nobody that can get their knickers in a twist like Ben.
No, I guess it's just a natural skill. It's you know what? Maybe you might be right. Maybe people prefer this complete kind of anarchic, chaotic approach to everything. Maybe I need to relax and stop trying to make everything so damn slick. But Gary, did you see how much love you got on my page yesterday for your birthday?
I didn't really look, Ben. No, did I get a lot of love?
Yeah. Well, you look like you've signed off on some of the kind of comments that people make.
I saw a few. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I had an overwhelming lot of people. I need to go on Facebook and thank everybody and some of the other sites that Instagram people. But I'm not really big on this social media.
I know. Yeah, I was.
The only time I've been active lately is because Ben, I get tags from Ben who's active, and so I respond to Ben's page more than my own because it comes up and I feel like obliged. If someone's kind enough to send me a comment, I feel that I should at least thank them. You know what I mean? So it's, but I'm not good at the social media stuff.
Well, you know what you're really good at? You're really good at your lighting because you have the dramatic on your left side and you have the light and your lean. The way he sits, the angles that he sits at, I'm trying to get that. Ben and I just have like blatant light in front of us, and you have.
I'm just in the garden.
Do you know what would be good, Silk? When you're
he's got this godlike presence.
The garden. Look how big the garden is. About 2 acres back in the.
So it's like a godlike presence. We look like we're in I don't even know where, and yeah. Ben, I won't talk about.
You know what I'd be happy with? I mean, Gary's aesthetic is brilliant, like you say, and he's got an idea how to kind of carry himself in that.
I'm in the film business. Come on.
Exactly. But Silk, if you could just learn to keep your head in the center of the screen for a whole episode, that would be brilliant. We'll deal with the backdrop later.
You're talking to a boxer. It's like, you got like neck things and all of a sudden you're tilted. Listen, my whole life, right? I learned to, tuck the chin.
Yeah.
And so it becomes such a everyday thing. Like you walk down the street and you're looking like this. You're talking to people and you're talking out of the top of your eyes. And it's crazy sometimes. So when
I live in the forest. You want to see the forest? Just should show the viewers the forest. Look. I don't know if the internet will stay up, but look.
Gary?
Look, this is the garden in the forest.
Listen, I can't see the forest for the trees.
Look.
Yeah, there you go. The wood,
Look, see, in the pool.
I thought that was a good one.
What part of LA is? Yeah, it was quite good. What part of LA is this in, Gary?
Beverly Hills.
Oh, there you go.
Oh my God! Look at this. Look at the stone pool, the Stonehenge over there.
Yes,
you've got the pool.
It's all like very natural.
This used to be the Hugh, what's his name? The guy that used to own the Playboy. The Playboy Mansion.
No, it's
Hugh
not
Hefner.
Hugh Hefner, yeah.
No, his house is about 50 times bigger.
Yeah.
But see, it's no lighting. I sit back down, and it's just.
I think it's all his natural green. He's got like a nice. I don't know what it is, but it works.
Yeah, we'll have to get that at some point because
I want to get some horses soon one day.
Yeah,
I'll invite you to come ride horses. I'm sure Ben will come. I think Michael will want to ride tigers or something.
Yeah, I don't think
do something different.
I'm not.
Maybe a unicorn or something.
Yeah.
Well, what is that symbolism for something?
Well, me and you ride horses, Ben, and he could drive the Ferrari.
Yeah, there you go.
Which has 100, we're like 300 horses, right?
Yeah, a power, yes, indeed. We could do it all. That we're here all week. We'll certainly be back next week anyway. Guys, is that a wrap? You know, you seem to resist my attempts to close out in the way that I try to close, and then we go somewhere else. But
I didn't know you were making the effort to close out. You have to like do that thing like Carol Burnett used to do. You go something like this.
I need a signal. Yeah.
Well, who did that in boxing? There was a guy that always used to go like
Mills Lane.
Mills Lane would do that. Yeah. Mills.
Yeah. He reffed me a few times, though, man.
Yeah. Before you go, Gary, I was talking about the York Hall and some of the fantastic fighters and car, gems that we got in the 80s there. And I was talking about the time that James Kincham fought Buster Drayton there. And I believe you
got on that card one, eh?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. That's why I wanted to talk to you about it quickly, because it was April the 14th, 1985, the day before Hagler Hearns, and you were on it.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
But how amazing is that to think nowadays you'd never get two world-rated middleweights on at the York Hall on a Sunday off TV today, would you?
No.
Amazing.
York Hall's a piece of history, really. The bodies that have been through York Hall, right? And what an amazing atmosphere that place has. The roof comes off, sometimes at York Hall. So it's like the people above you almost, like in a cocoon.
Yeah.
Atmosphere. That's like the Blue Horizon in Philadelphia. That was one of those amazing places where you're right on top of the ring. I did not fight there. One time I was scheduled to, didn't happen. But you're like right on top of the ring. I used to watch the fights. I used to do Tuesday night fights over here, and they would pretty much shoot them, come to you from that place, and it just looked amazing.
What was amazing was the sound, right? Because you could hear people. Yeah. I remember Terry Downs.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there was a fight, and I was sat behind Terry, but you could hear. Like I heard stuff when I was even boxing in the ring. You could hear people, but I'll never forget because it was like stereo. There's a terrible fight taking place, and someone shouted, "Turn the fucking lights off and go to sleep here." And Downsy shouted, "No, leave them on. I'm reading a book."
Yeah.
And the whole place went up, and it's a true story. And then that became like a funny saying, but I was actually at the venue when he said it. He had his cigars. Someone said, "Turn the fucking lights off," and he went, "Leave them on. I'm reading a book." And everyone in York Hall pretty much heard.
I didn't know that Downsy said that, but I've heard the joke, the generic
that
joke.
Came from that York Hall venue. Yeah,
I like the one. There was I think it was Jack Solomon's and he had the Duke of Edinburgh at the time as a special guest at his show, and there was a Belgian import who wasn't exactly selling himself and looked a bit dodgy. And one of the other people in the company of Solomon's and the royalty said, "Where did you get this Belgium from?" And deadpan he replied, "Belgium."
So I missed that one. Is that
what?
I missed that. I didn't get the joke.
Oh my gosh!
Sure.
Would you know when?
Yeah.
Do people not say that in America? Like, where the fuck did you get this guy from?
It's like saying, "Where'd you get the American from?" And Ben says, "America."
Oh.
Someone said, "Where did you get this Belgium from?" And he said, "Belgium." Yeah. No.
Oh, I get it. Yeah.
See, Michael, the thing is, this is the strange thing about you. You are hyper intelligent and you have a thinking capacity on a level of unlike most, very few people of my acquaintance. But if someone was not attuned to that, they could think you were just some punch drunk ex-pug who's always behind a beat. I mean, you are a highly intelligent guy, and you have a unique capacity for thinking. But a few people might not get that, and they might just think, "This guy, he took too many shots."
I have taken.
Hey, I just noticed something. It says Sugar, boxing coach and author. Yeah. Silk. Beating Sugar and stretching fight. What's this? What?
He's got his own little byline.
Yes, little
yeah, in fight predictions. Yeah.
Yes. What's the number? 322.
I think so. And you guys are like,
beat me again.
You guys are not 322.
You will never beat me again.
He's not ahead of anything. I know that I've got the.
That's been up for a couple of weeks. You guys know that's been up for a couple of weeks now, right?
Yeah. I
remember now
him
he's stuffed it in, the little fucking cunt.
Oh well.
I was like, how long is it going to take these guys to know what's going on here?
Oh, you little utter.
Listen, Gary,
you're changing yours.
Gary, to be fair to him, that is his greatest achievement. He's have a lot to choose from.
His greatest achievement ever will be when Ben Doughty kisses the ring.
Yeah, that'll be the sign that he's finally arrived. He's a somebody.
You know what? By the end of, let's say, do we have a season on this thing on how many fights we're going to call or something? We're going to go to the best of 10 fights.
What's the next big fight, Ben?
Do you know what? There's not huge fights coming up. You've got Katie Taylor and Chantel Cameron rematch is not a million miles away. You've got things like Michael Conlon and Jordan Gill that's December 2nd. You've got things like Denzel Bentley versus Leon Williams. There is action, but there's nothing really definitive and huge.
Callum Smith has got a big fight, right?
Callum Smith is fighting Artur Beterbiev in January 14th.
That's the best fight coming up.
Yeah, next year.
A couple of fights before the end of the year. Who's the kid? Not Andrade. Is it Andrade? Andrade and
David Benavidez. Yeah.
So that's a fight.
I don't rate Benavidez at all.
But I think everyone's going to take Benavidez on that.
I think he's tough, but I don't rate him. I think Canelo would stop him.
Who? Benavidez?
People are accusing Canelo.
Everyone's got this. He's big on Benavidez. I've watched him. I've studied him. I think he's terrible.
Yeah. Do you think Andrade might?
I think
anyone with a bit of game beats him. I think he's fought a lot of people past their prime. I thought he's been really well handled, and I think I don't like his attitude. I don't like what I don't like about him is he disrespects people. It's one thing having attitude respectfully, but he's very disrespectful. He can be vulgar. He can be abusive.
I didn't get that. Maybe I didn't hear his conversations afterwards, but I didn't get that.
You know what? If you want to be big-headed, like go and win a world title and have 10 defenses, then maybe you can be big-headed. But you ain't there yet, my friend. And to put people like Canelo and the shitty talks, he doesn't respect that many people. And we'll see, but I think he's going to come up short.
We shall see. So when you ask me when the next big fight is, the answer is there isn't really a definitive one, but there's plenty of fights to close us out for the remainder of 2023 at least.
Name fighters, right?
Yeah, there's like I say, there are dates there. There isn't a mega fight on the horizon.
So you know what I suggest we do, Ben?
Go on.
We can use this this particular episode to ask the viewers, the few that we have, if they can send in to you anything that they would like us to maybe discuss next week.
Sure.
When you close, maybe you could, just if there's any questions, any topics that they like, anything that they'd like to put light on.
Feel free to send in your suggestions. We realize we're appreciative at the minute. We have this kind of dedicated hardcore following at the minute. Get at us with your suggestions via whatever social media, whether it's on this YouTube channel, whether it's my social media, Facebook or Instagram, or the Silks, or even Gary's. We will be back next week, coming back at you on Friday. In the meantime, be lucky.
You forgot to say what the final count was. Like, what are we in terms of scores?
He's done it again. He will not let me fucking close a show and make it slick. But he doesn't realize how bad, certainly to me, to my.
But you can't, Ben. You cannot do an incomplete show. You can't leave it. It's not a cliffhanger.
I can't remember what the scores are. I've got them written down.
But Michael, Ben rehearses for hours these closing like that.
I'm natural. It's natural. It's
like a monologue. He's got a thing on the back wall in the bedroom. He's called me and said, "How'd you study?" He studied it like a monologue. I worked with him on that monologue for 2 hours yesterday, and he just cut him. And he was doing really well because he wasn't doing good yesterday, but he was doing really well, and you just cut him off. So Ben, give us the score again, and then very eloquently.
I can't remember what the score is.
I think it's 3-2-2.
Yeah. So what's amazing is you have mono and you're not having a voice problem.
Say again.
You have mono and you don't have a voice, like you don't have a voice problem. Gary said you had a
monologue. Monologue is a block of dialogue.
Mono. I thought you said he had mono.
So in the acting business, if you do a monologue, it's like telling a story. It's like
or a soliloquy in a more
like
kind of
you know, a piece of text that you do alone, and you so you know you could do and so Ben takes his closing
he takes his
monologues very seriously.
He certainly does. This time
I take his soliloquies very seriously.
Okay, so quickly, so Ben, so you're what? Ben, you're what? You called 2 right?
It's at least 2. I'm 2.
Let's call it 2-2-3, and then you'd be happy with that, Michael, because it's the last one you'll ever get from me.
And what are you, Gary?
I'm 2, Ben 2, you 3.
Okay.
I don't think he is. I don't think.
Yes, it is, Ben. No, on that note, we shall be closing. Sugar
you close the show.
Huh?
Go, show me you know how to do it. Go on, go ahead.
Close the show.
Yeah, either
me
one
or you or
Michael, Gary's gonna close the show. Gary's the professional here. Let's go. Shut it down on him, Gary.
Ladies and gentlemen, hardcore boxing fans, thank you for joining us on this this podcast. Michael Silk, Ben Sugar, Stretchy Stretch, and we look forward to seeing you next week on Friday. If there's any particular subject that you'd like us to put light on, or to any questions, or if there's a subject matter that you'd like us to discuss, I ask you this because there's not a lot of big fights that are taking place before the end of the year. However, there's so many interesting subjects in boxing, from judging to there's so many. I don't want to limit you with my limitations, but anything that you feel that would host a good show, we would be happy to look at and oblige. And until next week, it's good night from Stretch.
Good night from me.
Beautiful. Good night from Silk Olajide, New York City, babe.
Peace out.
Peace out.